Hey, what's up everybody? This is part 2 in our book cover series. In this lesson, we're going to learn how to create all of the artistic elements to populate the book cover template that we created in the first video. As I mentioned, the first video, we created a cover, a spine, and a back cover, which were separated into 3 pages that we then attached to one another. In this lesson, we're going to dive right in, and I have a pre-built asset library that I'm going to be using, but you feel free to use your own imagery as you create your very own book cover. So we're going to get started by creating the image that is going to be on the background. To do this, I typically do a very simple thing. I make sure that my layers panel is on, and I want to have 2 specific layers. I want to have a layer that is just for images, and I want to then create a layer that is just for text. And for those of you who are new to InDesign, you can create your layers by just hitting the new layer button. I'm going to go ahead and lock down the text layer for the time being and just focus essentially on my imagery. The first thing I want to create is going to be a rectangle. I'm going to go to my rectangle tool, and I'm going to drag a big old rectangle, which we're going to fix the color of this in a bit, but we're going to just keep it black for the time being. Let's open up that panel so we can see that rectangle. This is just going to give us a space to work with. Now, I'm locking this just because I accidentally move things from time to time without knowing. Now, rather than just drag my image in, and this is my image that I'm going to use, I want to create something dynamic with this. I'm going to get a little wild here and go back to my shape tool and create a few ellipses. We're talking about space. I'm creating a sci-fi epic here. I'm going to just pull this out and arrange where my picture is going to be. That's looking pretty good there. Now that I have that image and that circle, whoops, let me undo that real quick and draw it again. Perfect. We have that circle ready to go, and we can even eyeball off the background just so you can see kind of what I'm doing. I'm going to then go ahead and continue to draw some circles. I want this to be a solar system, space kind of feel. I'm going to just kind of intersect these. I'm going to use my principles and elements of design. I don't want a hidden Mickey here, so I'm going to lower that just slightly. Then I'm using my Alt key to then take the shape and move it to another place, and then just give it some scale as we see fit. So you could really arrange this any way you wish. I'm using the shape tool. I'm not using the text frame tool. That's going to be an important element here in a second when we decide to kind of create these final piece to the puzzle here. And maybe we'll add one more shape. You can have a lot of fun with this. I'm holding Shift as I go. Now that I have these shapes, I'm going to grab all of these and I'm going to go to a really familiar tool. But that tool is really familiar because it's from Adobe Illustrator. If I go to Window and I go to Object and Layout, you're going to find the good old Pathfinder tool. Here, I can combine these shapes. This is going to give me a nice organic shape to put one of my images in. I'm then going to make sure that I turn off the stroke to that image. I'm going to go to my color and make sure that my fill and stroke are selected. I'm going to just turn off the fill and stroke to those. It's really hard, as you can see, to kind of tell what's going on with this, but essentially this has become your text frame. This path will now serve as that frame for the image to come in. All I have to do is drag that image in and drop it, and now I have a very cool way to make a text frame. Here I'm going to just expand this image a little bit, move it around just so my main character is front and center. We have a lot more exploration in shape that we can play around with as well. If I offset this circle with these circles, this looks really good. I want to get some of that ground plane in there. I'm going to continue to scale this a little higher just to get some of those rocks on there. This is where your design sense comes into play. All right, that looks really fun. I like that. I like where we're going with that. All right, now that I have that, I can move this image wherever I want on my cover, which is really great. But I want to sample this image because I want to use some of these colors later in my scene. I'm going to go ahead and go to my swatches panel by going to Color, Swatches, I'm going to open this up and add a few of these commonly used themes. So one, I want to add kind of a dark background that matches this for a little later. I'm going to go ahead and go to my fill, get my eyedropper tool. I just want to select that dark purplish blue. I'm going to hit the new swatch panel. That's going to bring it on board for me. Next, I'm going to go ahead and maybe pick one of these lighter kind of soft tones. Typically, to get this to work, you're going to need to kind of click off of the eyedropper tool and click again. We'll make that. That looks really good. Then we're going to sample one more color in a second, but we're going to sample it from our title. Let's go ahead and get the title on there. I'm going to drag my book title onto my screen, click off stage, and use my scroll wheel just to scroll out. It's going to be absolutely huge. We're going to make a space adventure. We're going to scale that down with the transform tools, right click, fitting. We're going to fit content to frame. That's going to give us just a little more ability. If we double click on there, we can scale the content up as we see fit and move it around and make sure our text box is not cropping anything. That's looking pretty good. I just want to offset this. Once again, the great part about this is we can scale all of these elements down. I'm going to scale this down just a little bit. I'm going to scale this down. That looks good. Double click and just move my character up once again, just so everything fits into the screen. Make my space adventure just slightly smaller. There we go. But I want to sample this color while I'm here. I'm going to go ahead and use that eyedropper tool, sample that red, hit OK. Now I have these colors. Why is this important? Well, let's go back to the layer panel and see. We have this background image that is black and dark and gross, but now I can go into the properties of this. When I select it, I can choose, when I hit fill, if I scroll down, I can choose that purple. It's going to kind of pull it all together. How cool is that? This is going to start aesthetically designing and aligning all of my different image elements. While I have this going, I am going to pull in my barcode. It's going to come in way too big, but that's okay because I'll just nest it here in the corner, lower it, right click. I may need to go a little bigger actually. There we go. Right click and do fitting and we'll fit content to frame. Now we have a lot of our fun elements. Next, I'm going to add some effects. This is looking a little too flat for me, so I'm going to go to the cover image. As you see, you can double click and name these if you wish, but I'm going to go to the cover image and I'm going to go to FX. If you don't see this panel, it's a great panel. It's called the control panel. Go ahead up there and click, but I'm going to add a drop shadow. I'm going to go into my drop shadow. I'm going to spread it out because I want some softness. And I'm going to play with the distance a little bit. I'm even going to add some noise, which is really nice. And I can pull down that opacity just ever so slightly. I'm creating that visual separation from the background. I have that. This is looking pretty good. I may want to even make this just a little larger, which is kind of nice because I got a big image. Why not? Why not use it? Stretch. We're going to pull that down. Yeah, that's looking pretty good. I like that. So this just give me a little more space here. I'm going to nudge these down even further because we're going to put a tagline up here eventually. And we just want a little bit of negative space between these two elements. That is looking phenomenal. I have these elements ready to go. The next step is to think about the text. Where's my text going to land on these elements? Where is the tagline or the quote of the text going to land? The reason I put these on separate layers is once you have your layers where you want them, you can go ahead and just lock them and not have to worry about messing up those specific layers. I'm going to unlock my text box now, and we're going to create some copy. I have my copy here. I have things like a tagline, a great little blurb, and a little block quote that we're going to incorporate into this scene. Let's go ahead and start with the tagline. In the heart of the 1960s space race, young astronaut Alex Carter embarks on a thrilling journey beyond the stars. Great. I'm going to go and make sure that in my layers panel, I'm on the text layer and get my text tool, and I'm going to draw out a tagline box here at the front. And I'm going to try to center that as best as possible. Paste that text. It looks absolutely hideous, just like I thought, but that's okay. The next step is, how can I color this text? Well, remember, we can now use some of the colors we pulled. I'm going to pull in that cream colored text. Let's take a look at that. Look how much nicer that looks. That cream colored text is super, super nice. We're going to go ahead and center that. That looks even better. And let's pick a nice font. Because we're doing a space, we're going to go to Futura. We'll do something like, we'll try Futura Condensed. I have an ugly little hyphen. Don't worry, you have a hyphenate button here. You can uncheck and we can make that come up, and perfect. Now, the next final step is just to up the scale. I think I'm going to just up this a few clicks, maybe to 14. I may hit Shift Return to pull that down. It looks like we need a little bit more leading, so we'll just open up that leading just a little bit. Leading is the spacing between our elements, so you can see if I really open it up, I can nudge those. That is looking really good. Now, a little heavy for me. I may play with more medium type to see what that looks like. When that happens, it makes me really want to kind of go down a few steps in text. I will do that. Text building is just little adjustments. You can always use the auto feature, which is always a nice feature, but that looks pretty good to me. All right, we have that nice text. Use your arrow keys too. They're your best friends. They help you nudge if you're kind of moving things too fast or too slow. Now that I have this image, I'm going to go ahead and Alt Shift, and I'm going to say a space novel by, hit hard return, Matt Dombrowski, and let's go ahead and up the size of the author's name. Why not? I worked hard writing this fake novel, and let's up it here. And we could play with the colors again. We could, like I mentioned, grab that text. We can go into our color palette. Maybe we sample some of that red just to get some visual order and typographical hierarchy. That looks really, really good, actually. And, you know, we're just having fun with this. We're just thinking about layout, what would entice the reader when we decide to, you know, maybe we see this in a bookstore or whatnot. What's a bookstore? Anyway, let's go through and continue to build this. The next step, I'm going to hold Alt and create a quote. I have a quote here that's pretty fun. It says, Space Adventure. Let's double click so you can see that. Space Adventure is a riveting tale of exploration and shows the power of family. And I'm going to hit enter and hit reader. We can always put the reader's name if we wanted to. There you go. I think we're going to go ahead and play with the alignment. We're going to kind of adjust the alignment here, and we're going to adjust the scale as well. Let's go to good old Futura. Maybe we'll use medium italic for this. That's looking really good. I'm hitting Control A to grab all my text. We're going to grab a little bit more, maybe 16. We want this to stand out a little bit from the tagline. It is the quote. It's the hook. Perfect. That looks great. And maybe we want a little bit of a character style here. If I go to character styles and add a new character style, I can actually edit just that text. Here, I could make this a little more bold, or I could set this to kind of be extra bold just to get the word Space Adventure to pop out there. We have that set up, and we could adjust that a little later and play around with the leading and whatnot. We can go ahead and get our text box, and we can add some body copy. I love this because you can see my smart guides are on. If you don't have smart guides, you can go up to View, Extras, and you can play with those, the guides as well, grids and guides, smart guides, great way to do it. I'm going to grab my body copy and Control C and come in here and Control V, and it's absolutely hideous. Once again, do not fret. Hit Control A to grab everything, and you'll notice real quick that it's not really filling the screen very much, but we're going to change it over to that cream color, and it's going to look a lot better. Check that out. But we have some runoff. What is runoff? When we get this little plus sign, that means there's extra text to be revealed. We need to pull that out. You're going to see now it interferes a lot with our image. And don't worry if you get a little error like this. This is just a little graphic error. It will go away. It's not going to be there forever. And I'm going to go ahead and play with this, but I don't want to use Futura. I want to use a different font here. So I'm going to use, in this case, Adobe Garamond. Garamond is a great kind of typeface when it comes to writing blocks of text, and you can see it really adjusts rather well here for that. And so now we have a little bit of runoff. If we needed to, I can unlock my images and just kind of nudge that barcode down a little more. We can cheat it just slightly and right click, and let's fit that content into the frame. Great, that looks wonderful. We'll lock that back up. We'll go ahead and save here. We want to save during our progress, especially if you're getting like a graphical error like that. We're going to hit save, and we're going to say in progress. Perfect. And just in case something happens and we get that a little bit. But let's go ahead and do a test. I'm going to hold Shift W to see what we have. So far, our book is looking good. We need to work on that spine, but I'm liking what I'm seeing here. Things are happening. Shift W again, that just minimizes my screen. It's a little, I guess, glitch. I don't know really why it does that. But now that we have that, we can start adjusting even further. Let's do that spine. And we'll use we'll hold Alt here and we'll duplicate that. So we'll hold the Option key and we're going to type space Adventure by Matt Borowski. Awesome. All right. In this case, we'll go back to Futura, but we're going to pick bold. Why not? It's the title. And we're going to rotate it using that edge there. It's going to look really tiny and small, so we do need to make this a lot bigger. You'll notice your text box may not fit, but that's okay. We're going to just drag that out. We're going to then adjust as we see fit. There we go. And if you don't get all your names, don't worry. I happen to have a very long last name. I'm going to center this text. As I look at this, I kind of want it to be in the center of this space. So these are just different ways you can kind of center or distribute multiple text in your control bar. But that's looking pretty decent. And we're going to change the color up just a bit. Let's take Space Adventure, highlight it, go to its fill, and let's drop that red in there just so it matches its title. And check that out, y'all. We could even go and change the font size here. Maybe we don't want bold. Maybe we want a medium font for my name just to get some visual order. But all of a sudden, just in a few minutes, we have a beautiful book cover. How cool is that? We've done a lot of very advanced, fancy techniques in which you can kind of build on. Now, we could have used things like paragraph styles and character styles, but again, this is a beginning lesson. I want you all to be comfortable in adjusting as you see fit and, not being intimidated by the InDesign program, because it has a lot of tools that your other programs will have. When I'm ready to get this out of my final scene, I'm going to simply go to the file, and then I'm going to go to export. I'm going to make sure this is set to Adobe PDF Print, and you can name it your book cover, whatever you want to name it, or what you're required to name it. I'm going to go to one important factor. It will be set to pages. I'm going to set this to spreads and hit export, and that's going to take a hot second, but in a matter of seconds, you have your very own book cover. How cool is that? So in a matter of minutes here, we created a really great book cover that's creative and that's built appropriately. If I was sending this to the printer, one thing I would change in that export settings is I would hit save, and I would make sure I go to bleeds and put all printers marks. So if I hit export on that, that's going to just give me all the printers marks that you needed. So you can see that everything it was set up in the initial video part 1 where we set up that bleed to make sure that works. The final step in InDesign that I always like to do is I like to package all of my content so I can save it and back it up on the cloud. So I'm going to hit package here, and it's going to ask, it needs all of these different elements. So it has links to images, 3 found, none missing, colors, all that good stuff. It looks like a warning, but it's actually okay. I can look at the different fonts that are used. It's going to give me all of the different links. And what this is going to do is actually gather everything, and we're going to hit save, and it's going to create a folder for us. So we will call this folder Vinyl. it's going to put it on my desktop, and I'm going to hit OK. Why is that important? Well, that is super important because when you now have access to a folder, and I'll open that up and drag it over, it packages everything very nicely for you to use. So you can hand it off to another designer, your publisher, your editor, you name it. I hope you enjoyed this lesson today, and I can't wait to see what book covers you create. Go ahead and hit that like button and a follow, and I will see you in the next adventure.